My name is David Wiss, and I'm an alcoholic. And I thank God for the gift of sobriety. Sobriety's been a gift, and nobody could give it to me. I couldn't give it to myself. And so I'm real grateful right now to be in Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I see so many friendly faces. I feel the love in this room tonight. I feel the love in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I fall in love with the 12-step process of recovery that's outlined in this book, and I've fallen in love with the people in these rooms, and I've fallen in love with the Marina Center. The Marina Center has been one of the most consistent parts of my recovery. I've moved around a lot, but I've always come to the Marina Center. Always. And there's a lot of people in here that have seen it and that I continue to see on a regular basis at the Marina Center. I like the late night meeting. There's a meeting here at 11 o'clock at night. I like to drink coffee sometimes at night because it helps me go to sleep. Is that weird? See, look, I'm kind of a reverse effect type of person. I could drink coffee to calm down. You know, when I drank alcohol, I'm not the one, maybe in the beginning, I drank alcohol and I got real rowdy, maybe got violent, you know, in the first couple years. But after having stayed loaded for so long, for so regularly, at some point, alcohol just calmed me down. I just needed a drink to calm my nerves. I needed a drink just to get out of bed. I needed a drink every day. I'm not the one who went for spells of dry time. I'm not the one who even went until 9 o'clock at night. I get loaded when I wake up. I get loaded no matter what happens. I get loaded in places where people don't get loaded. I get loaded in places like treatment centers, correctional facilities, and I get loaded in hospital detoxes. No matter what happens, I always find a way. And that was a tough pill for me to swallow. That was a real tough pill for me to swallow. So a lot of people identify with the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type of drinker. The one who's like certainly one way, and then he takes a drink and he's on this whole other extreme. I don't necessarily identify with that 100%. There's a part of Dr. Jekyll Hyde that I do identify with. He talks about having a positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment. You know, when I had some real important appointment that I had to make, you know, like a court date or my father's birthday brunch or a final at a major university. I really wanted to be in certain places at certain times. But alcohol had other ideas. You know, my mind would tell me one thing and my body would tell me the other. You know, I always wanted to leave my house, but I couldn't leave. I mean, I used to go to my door to try to leave, and I couldn't leave because my house was a safe place. I stay with a large supply of what I need, and I always have something. I stay with flasks. I'm the one who has a bottle of Jameson Irish whiskey in my car at all times. I stay with something always. So I don't really know what it's like to run out of alcohol and wait for the 6 a.m. Liquor store to open. I don't really know what it's like to hang out at bars and drink for happy hour. I really don't. I know what it's like to drink alcohol from a bottle by myself in my car while I'm driving. You know, and I'll throw them out the window, and I'll put your life on the line for a drink, and I'll put my life on the line for a drink. Every time. And so I'm real grateful to be alive right now. You know, happy birthday, Eric. Thank you for inviting me. I love these two. I love watching these two in action. I mean, individually, you guys are all right. But together, there's something going on, you know. And so one thing that I know to be true about myself is that I fell in love with the big book in the process of recovery. And it is possible for me to get too attached to the chunks of truth that I've swallowed and digested through taking the 12-step journey and forget about some other real important stuff. You know, like the fellowship. I was out of the country a couple months ago in a whole other country, and I went to a meeting. And within a couple minutes before the meeting even started, I saw a friend from the LA Men's Stags, from the Santa Monica Promenade, before the meeting even started. And I got a big hug. And he picked me up the next day to go to a meeting. And I met someone else who was sponsored by our friend Mickey, right? And he was real excited. He said, I have a sponsor in LA. I said, yeah, he lives around the corner from me. And he was real excited about seeing someone from LA. And he was real excited about having our Lushy Lime Melody as a sponsor. Don't worry, I didn't tell him the truth about you, man. And within a day, I was sharing at a meeting in this other country. So the power of God goes real, real deep. And I found that it's much better demonstrated through actions than it is in talk of spiritual discovery. So I'm going to share with you in a general way what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I'm from this area. I went to Hamilton High School. I went to Palms Middle School. And I had like a real healthy upbringing in terms of my parents and my financial situation. A lot of it was good, almost too good, to the point where it bothered me. I saw other people that had some trials and tribulations in their lives. They had overcome some stuff, and I had never been challenged. And I knew that I was going to, set myself up for some challenges if they didn't come my way. I was going to, create some obstacles in my path. And so I'm a product of, 1992 when Dr. Dre, Snoop Doggy Dogg, the Chronic album came out. And this was a time when, getting high was mandatory. I'm talking about 6th, 7th, 8th grade. By the time I was 12, I smoke every day. And so I'm the one that got high and got straight A's. And I'm the one who lived in this little fantasy world, like a real cool dual-natured existence, On one hand, I am, from a nice home. My father practices medicine. I go to temple, right? But on this other hand, I got a knife in my pocket, I got a Sharpie, I got a lighter, and I got a bum who buys me alcohol. And I rolled like that. See, I always grew up thinking that I had to be either one thing or another. But see, in our book, in the third step, it talks about us alcoholics can have varied traits, right? That on one hand, I'm like this, and on another hand, I'm like this, right? And I can be a combination of these things at the same time. Right? And that was such a relief for me to find out that I had varied traits, right? That I wasn't either a tough guy or not a tough guy, that I was a complex combination of the two. So when I got to step 7, it was such a relief for me to be able to say, God, I don't know which one is good and which one is bad. Just take all of me. You figure it out. Because I think I know what's good. I think I know parts of my story which I want to cling on to and hold, and other parts that I don't want to tell. I can get married to these ideas in my mind about my story, about my truths, right? Even about my recovery, right? I can be fettered by all kinds of superstitions and fixed ideas and become attached to certain versions of my story that I told, certain versions of my recovery. So for me, recovery has to be living, breathing, organic. It has to be moving. It has to be alive, and that's my experience when I continue to work with people. I continue to go through the process. I continue to see new stuff about my truth, right? Because, look, I don't have no pre-recorded message, right? There is not one version of my story. There's a ton of versions of my story. I could tell you a version of my story that involves, the correctional facilities and the Sherm sticks and the home invasion robberies, and I could tell you that version of my story. But I could also tell you the straight A version of my story. The guy who got into a really nice university at the age of 17 had his own apartment, right? So I'm trying to get free of my story a little bit because my story is not the most important thing, right? It's special, it's important, but what's really important is how I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. By the time I was 21, I was a full-blown drug dealer. I had my own apartment. I broke free from my parents. I didn't want what they had, I thought that they had been doing this life thing all wrong, because they were taxpayers. I really believed that they needed to learn how to do this life thing from someone who had kind of discovered some stuff. And see, what I had discovered was nightlife, after hours, counterculture. See, I'm a product of the rave scene. I'm a product of being in after hours on a Monday, not even a Sunday, a Monday. Places where, people, I ended up going to where people got loaded the way I got loaded, right? Because I'm not the one who, I'm the one who comes out of an overdose and takes a hit. I'm the one who stays awake for 5 days at a time, I'm the one who crashes vehicles, several vehicles. I fall asleep at the worst times, like the freeway. I fall asleep behind the wheel when I'm driving, and I wake up, and I take a drink. I'm grateful to be alive today. I feel like I have a purpose in my life today, that I was restored to sanity for a specific purpose so that I could carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous to other people who suffer. And what I also found out was that a much greater demonstration of what we learn around here lies in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. So it's not just about staying sober and helping other alcoholics. It's about carrying this way of life into other areas of our life. And I've been able to do that successfully. I learned here that I can be useful. And I learned how to translate that feeling of usefulness into these other areas of my life. I ended up getting taken into custody after having several car accidents, hurting someone, being in jail for my grandfather's funeral. I lost my hustle. My phone wasn't really ringing anymore. People weren't really trying to track me down the way they used to. I didn't get that feeling that I got when I was in the Hollywood Hills getting loaded with people that were financially successful. It didn't work anymore. My life became about worship of people, sentiments, money, things, and myself. The only thing that was working for me was the acquisition of material goods, like Burberry and Gucci and cars and rims. I became a worshiper of material things. And it was real cool for me to go through the process and take a look at my experience, and I found out that I had been a worshiper my whole life. I was a worshiper my whole life of these people that I was hanging out with. If I could only hang out with this one crowd, eventually they were going to come save me. They were going to pull me out of this crack life that I lived, and they were going to put me in like a corporation and make me head of a human resources team, right? I really thought that if I just stuck around these people long enough, that they would snatch me up, And I had been worshiping ideas. I had been worshiping my own mind, because I create theories in my own mind about how life ought to be, how my parents are doing it wrong, And I worshipped material goods. I worshipped like my handgun. That's a really dark thing for me to believe. And so when I went through the process of recovery, I found out that I had been a worshiper my whole life. And it was real easy for me to translate that into worship of God. It was real easy for me to realize that I'm a worshiper. And today I can worship. Okay? And I ended up in a correctional facility. I caught cases, and I continued to get loaded. I learned how to make alcohol, and I got pretty good at it, to be honest with you, because there's a chemical process, and for some reason, I was pretty savvy with chemistry. I was good at it, and I gave birth to the idea that, the same idea that I've been giving birth to my whole life was that I'm a connoisseur, I'm an expert, right? That I have hustle and that I have game. And I always went back to the idea that my self-sufficiency was going to solve my problems and that I was going to be able to get myself out of this stuff. And what ended up happening, you guys, is I couldn't get myself out of it anymore. I couldn't pull it off. I had been to 3 treatment centers. My family gave up on me. I went from being financially successful to being basically in debt. I had a bench warrant. And God started putting angels in my life. You know what's such a trip? At a year and some change sober, I had a really profound experience with the Big Book. And for a long time, I had been telling a version of my story about my first 2 sponsors who didn't take me through the Big Book, right? And they had just exposed me to the steps and introduced me to people. And they had picked me up, and they took me to meetings. And in my mind, I gave birth to the idea that those people, that they had done something wrong, right? But today what I see is that those were angels. God put some angels in my life. The people that I needed to be there were there. And there was people who came and got me out of treatment center. Someone that I had gone to rehab with. And he came and picked me up, and he took me through my first inventory. And he showed me how to take inventory in prayer. My first inventory was all about my ego. I wanted to show this guy, because he was cool and he had a nice car, I wanted to show him about how all these people had done me dirty, about how these people owed me money and didn't pay me, about how these people didn't send me a magazine when I was busted. And I wanted to show this man what a cool guy I was in my first inventory, because I didn't know any better. I still thought that I was going to get myself out of this, right? But for whatever reason, I had entered a period of grace. I was in a grace period. And I started to hear stuff in the rooms of AA. I started to hear people speaking with conviction about the power of God in their lives. And I started to believe people. I truly started to believe what they were saying. There were times when I came here, a couple months sober, in a van. And I would sit in the back, never thank the speaker, but I would hear stuff, and it would plant these little seeds. See, my recovery's been in retrospect a lot. I didn't know it at the time what was happening. It's not until much later when I'm able to say, like, that person reached out and he touched me. There were some people that really bothered me, actually, when I was new. People that spoke, like, real heavy on the God stuff. It bothered me, I just want to let you guys know that the message of AA that's in this book is heavy on the God stuff, okay? That is the message of AA. But the only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. You don't have to believe in anything. You don't have to believe what I believe. But what I believe is that God is everything. And I made that choice in a sober state of mind. Circumstances made me willing to believe, willing to see the truth. And I've seen some truth. I have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about David Wiss. And some of them were very uncomfortable. They gave me GI distress. Some of them I didn't stomach very well. But it was vital for me to see my need for a spiritual experience. See, I don't do this out of want. I do this out of need. I was able to really see the truth about what it means to be an alcoholic. And for me, being an alcoholic doesn't mean that I need to stop drinking and start going to more of those meetings. For me, what alcoholism looks like is that left to my own devices, that the time and the place will surely come. I will drink again. I'm going to drink. Left to Dave. And so based on that, it drove me through the rest of the steps. I was able to see that I need to have what's known as a vital spiritual experience. Yes, I am one of them too. I must have this thing. This thing being the solution that's offered in this big book, which is known as a vital spiritual experience. Vital, right? And I was able to seek power with the desperation of a drowning man. At some point, having been separated from the drugs and alcohol for long enough, I was able to see that need. I saw the need for it. Because if you don't see the need for it, if you believe that you can restore yourself to sanity, why are you going to make amends? Right? I mean, who's really going to go through this process on a deep level without the need for it? Right? I saw the need for it, and when I asked this third man to take me through the process, the need was there. I saw the truth, and when I said the third step, I really meant it. I sincerely took the third step position in my life. I had said the prayer so many times. I said the prayer in meetings. I said the prayer with previous sponsors. But when I said it on that day, I knew my life was never going to be the same again. And that's been my truth. And I started taking inventory again, and we started following every instruction in this book. I had heard people talking about it, following the steps as outlined in the book. I'm not talking about reading the book. I'm not talking about just, reading the big book. I'm talking about working the steps exactly as they were intended when they were written. And when it says we ask God, we ask God. Following every instruction. Not just reading them, going by every single thing in here. For whatever reason, that message reached me, and that was what I wanted, and that's what I asked for. I said, hey, can you do that with me? And he was like, sure. And he just kind of bore witness to it. He just kicked back. He didn't even put a whole lot of himself into it. He knew the book a little bit. He just watched it happen for me. I was starving. These people were thoroughly convinced about the presence of God in their life, and I wanted that. I didn't want to walk around AA talking about, I need a meeting to fix my brain. I didn't want to be walking around AA talking about, I don't know what to do, so I have to ask my sponsor. See, there's all types of brands of AA, brands of recovery. And I was fortunate enough to go to a ton of different meetings in early sobriety to figure out what it was I wanted, right? And what I wanted was the message of AA that was in the book. I didn't want any other message. For whatever reason, that worked for me. And I want to say one thing. The message that I carry is not for everyone. It's not for everyone. Not everyone has to go to the extremes of praying and making amends. That's what in order for a lot of people. And that's cool, truly. But there's some people in here who drink like I drink. There's some people in here who smoke crack the way I smoke crack. There's some people in here who put lives on the line on a regular basis. And there's some people in here that are searching for a solution to alcoholism, which means there is a spiritual solution to the mind problem, which means that based on my experience with the 12 steps, having gone through the process, having made my amends, that I can enter a place in step 10 known as the world of spirit, right? Where sanity starts to return in my life. When I can get brought to a whole new place, a new freedom, a new happiness. And I can start to understand that my thinking is based on the condition of my spirit. And to even understand that I have a condition of my spirit, that's a major leap. But I started to watch. I started to watch for things that were going on internally, resentment, dishonesty, selfishness, fear. And I started to realize that my primary job was to start watching for my spiritual condition. And that it was based on my spiritual condition that my thinking rested. And that if my spiritual condition is straight, then I can rely on my thinking a little bit. Huh? That's not a common popular message in AA. Because on page 23 it says the main problem centers in his mind. Right? But most people stay in the first 3 steps. Right? I hear a lot of people talking about practicing steps 1, 2, and 3 every day. But see, that's in the beginning part of the steps. At some point later on in the steps, in steps 10, 11, and 12, it tells us that we can get an intuitive thought, that we can be restored to sanity, that we can start to trust our thinking. People don't like to talk about that stuff. It's much easier to demonize the mind and decide that I'm going to go through my life blaming my thinking on my alcoholism and just stay powerless. That's easy. Just stay powerless, stay meeting dependent, and stay sponsor dependent. That's real easy. Let someone else think for you. See, when you recover, it comes with a lot of responsibility. To stand up here and tell you that I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state, it comes with a lot of stuff, right? That means that I have to claim spiritual progress, that I have to carry this message, that I have to respect the traditions, right? And that when someone's serious about going through this process, that I'll be able to help them if I can. And that's a responsibility. And so I'm claiming responsibility and I'm claiming recovery because, this thing really worked for me. What ended up happening was I had an experience with the steps, and people started asking me to show them what happened for me. And they said, yeah, that's a great message. And I said, it's not my message. It's the message of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Huh? And and I started working with people, and I figured out that, I could do what I wanted to do in life. Those principles that I had working in my life as a kid, that I'll never measure up to my dad, that as I am, I'm not enough, that as soon as this event occurs, that everything will be okay. A lot of that stuff started to go away. I started to believe that God could and would if he were sought. No, for real. Not kind of, sort of, maybe. Not like, pray and meditate every once in a while, but like, give this thing my all. And so I started working with a lot of people. I started going back to school because, see, I had a lot of self-doubt. I had a lot of self-doubt because I had convictions. I had to switch my career paths completely. I had to start from scratch. I didn't have like a resume. You know what I'm saying? I sold drugs for like 10 years. That was all I did. And I drank alcohol, and I got loaded with people that are in jail, dead. A couple of them are still out there. Can you believe it? They're still out there doing their thing. Unbelievable. I made amends to a friend of mine's mom. And the amends, because I had done some wreckage with her son, and a lot of it happened at her house. And, what came out of that conversation was, that when her son was ready, that I would be there for him. And, when I make those kind of amends, I'm dead serious about this stuff. When that kid is ready, I will go to any lengths to help him. I'm willing to go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. I made all my amends. There might be some stuff that I haven't recalled, so I stay open-minded, right? I stay open-minded and alert to the signals of the universe. I went back to school. I found out what I wanted to do for a living, and I went after it, heavy. And I got rejected from grad school. I got rejected. I finally got in after like several attempts. I started my own business, working one-on-one with people because I learned that I was good at working one-on-one with people in Alcoholics Anonymous. I learned that in the realm of spirit, anything is possible. There's a line, it's in We Agnostics. It says, the realm of spirit is all-inclusive, never exclusive to those who earnestly seek. Meaning that there is something called the realm of spirit, the world of spirit, and the fellowship of the spirit, as outlined in our text. And that anyone who wants to be in it can be in it. All you have to do is earnestly seek. And see, now the fellowship of the spirit is the unity of people, of spirits. And the meeting meets 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Right? It's always there. The fellowship of the spirit is always available to me. I just have to tap in. I've gained access to a power which I claim in my life. And I started carrying that into like my academic world, into my professional world. And I've had amazing results. I've moved forward in the healthcare field as someone that has, a lot of wreckage, someone that has a lot of felony convictions, someone that didn't have a resume. And I've been able to build a career for myself. I've been able to not only be restored to sanity, but like start to be concerned about my body as well. I believe that I am a body, a mind, and a spirit, and that at some point that can become unified, that I can get some unification between the three. And so I bring my body into meditation. I do all kinds of stuff. I do these meditation walks. I've been doing them for like 3-4 years, where I take groups of alcoholics and addicts and regular, normal, anyone who wants to come can come. And we walk in the middle of the night from Hermosa Pier to the Santa Monica Pier on the bike path. And it takes 5 hours. And I've been doing it for like 3 years. And I've taken hundreds of people. And what it represents to me is it represents being in motion, right? You know, it's almost like I know that I can't go any further on my own power, that my own human resources fail me, right? But if I tap into some power, that I can walk even further, and I find out that I'm capable of a lot more than I ever imagined. And I've walked marathons. I've become a member of my family again. You know, there's two reasons why this message originally spread, and one was because of the large number of recoveries, and two was because of reunited homes. People's homes were reunited, and the message started to spread in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I'm a product of a reunited home. You know, it is possible to go from being the flimsy reed in your family to becoming the rock in your family. It is possible in Alcoholics Anonymous to be restored to sanity. It is possible to recover from alcoholism. And it is possible to get brought to a place where you couldn't take a drink even if you wanted to. Even if you really wanted to, it is possible. You know, we can get a recoil mechanism. And so the central fact of my life today is that my Creator has entered my heart and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. And when I take a look at my evening review, my step 11 at night, to improve my conscious contact with God, what I look at is how did I interact with people. So my relationship with God is based on how I interact with people, you know, and the way that I interact with people reflects about where I'm at with God. So it's all connected here. And I found that there's a lot of different ways that people do AA, and there's no right way, and there's no wrong way. But there is a way that was originally blazed by our first 100 men and women, and that was the only thing that ever worked for me. And so it's the only message that I'm qualified to carry. Thank you for letting me share.